Welcome to Hidden Mickeys, Episode 10, the first in the Disney Originals series to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the opening of Walt Disneyland in Anaheim, California, the first of all the Disney parks. This episode begins with a return to a place in Episode 1, the calendar showing the opening date of Disneyland, July 17th, 1955. In the 1940s, Disney's studio had financial troubles. It's hard to believe, but during and just after World War II, the studio was low on money. 25% of Disney staff had gone to support the war effort. And Disney had produced 1,200 designs and training videos to give to the US military to also support the effort during World War II. So the studio was low on money. One way they saved money was by packaging films together. They would make short films and combine them into one full-length feature film. The last of these packaged films was produced in 1949, and it was called The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. So the 1949 film was based on a book called The Wind in the Willows. And this book involved Mr. Toad, who had this wonderful mansion called Toad Hall. And he gets involved in all kinds of adventures, and he's obsessed with automobiles, and he wants the latest automobile. And that gets him into some financial troubles because he's going out and buying these automobiles, and he has to have the latest thing, the latest best thing. At one point he ends up in jail. At another point, some animals, I believe some weasels, take over Toad Hall, his mansion. He loses track of his deed, the document that gives him, the official ownership of his house. He loses the deed to Toad Hall, and he's running around and he's looking for the deed. Eventually he gets the deed back. But whatever happened to that deed? Where did it go over all these years? Stay tuned, because at the end of this episode, we're gonna find out what happened to that deed. In the meantime, Basil Rathbone was the voice for Mr. Toad. He was a famous British actor, well known especially in the 30s and 40s for his portrayal of the famous detective Sherlock Holmes. Best of all, 6 years after this movie comes out, the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride at Disneyland in California, premiering on opening day, July 17th, 1955. Walt Disney himself used to ride that ride. It was one of the 3 original dark rides at Disneyland, which means it's one of the 3 original classic Fantasyland rides in all of Disney history. And one of them still exists today at Disneyland Park in California. You can still go on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Unfortunately, in 1998 at Walt Disney World in Florida, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride operated for the last time. I grew up on that ride, first going on it in California at the original park, but for several years in Florida, going on the ride many more times than I probably ever went on it before. So that was a tragic event for me. I believe it was replaced by Winnie the Pooh. If you happen to go to Florida, you can remember that Winnie the Pooh ride was once Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. But the great thing is, when I went to Disneyland Paris 2 years ago, I was walking around and I saw Mr. Toad's Manor, Toad Hall, looking just like it does at Disneyland in California, except sitting by itself. I walk in thinking I'm walking in to the ride to board one of Mr. Toad's famed automobiles. But instead of boarding the ride, I'm walking through rooms and I'm seeing portraits on the walls of Mr. Toad's friends and even Mr. Toad's coat of armor in the Toad shape. And then I realized this isn't a ride, this is a dining hall. And you can sit in the rooms of Mr. Toad's Manor and you can have lunch. And you see the cupboard with the teacups, and you can order your vegan fish and chips, and you can eat in Toad Hall with the beautiful stone fireplace behind you. And it was wonderful. So when you're in Disneyland Paris, make sure to visit the Toad Hall. So now we're brought back full circle from the original Disneyland, July 17th, 1955, opening day for one of the first ever dark rides, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, to Disneyland Paris, where they still have Toad Hall, but in restaurant form. All the way around the world here to Shanghai, China, Shanghai Disneyland, where we have the long lost deed to Toad Hall from the 1949 film. It was found and recovered. Mr. Toad made it home, thankfully. But we now have the deed, the actual deed to Toad Hall, right here in Shanghai Disneyland. I'm going to show it to you, but I can't show you where it is exactly. I can only say check some of the early episodes of Hidden Mickeys and look in the vicinity of Mickey Avenue the next time you're at Shanghai Disneyland. Look for the deed to Toad Hall. It is in a place that most people would not look, but in some ways it's also hiding in plain sight. Thank you for joining us today, and here is the photo of the deed itself.